If you're watching this video on a computer, chances are you're probably using Google Chrome. But if you're using any of these browsers, then you're still using Chrome. How's that possible? And why is that potentially dangerous? Well, let's find out. So what even is a browser? If we think of a library, then we can think of the browser as the structure of the building. The books inside it are all the info, so that's like the internet. And then the librarian is like the search assistant for the search engine. And as we know, some libraries look different than others. And some of them have different policies, different rules, and just a general different way of working. So if the whole building is a browser, then the structure of that building would be the browser engine. Is this making any sense? I have no idea, bro. And so we have a few different engines, the most popular ones being Chromium's Blink by Google, Mozilla's Gecko, and Apple's WebKit. And so how many browsers are there really? Well, the market share says that the majority of people use Google Chrome. And yeah, that's understandable. So if you're watching this video, you're most likely watching it on Chrome, except if you have an Apple product, in which case you're probably using Safari, or at least the WebKit engine. If you're a Windows user, however, and using Edge, you're still using Chrome, technically. So how is that possible? Well, browsers like Edge, Brave, Opera, ungoogled Chromium, are all built on Chromium. That means they're just basically Chrome skins with a few extra features and possibly a lot more privacy and a different layout. That gives us two problems: privacy and competition. So Google is the primary maintainer of Chromium, which Google Chrome is built upon all the way back in September 2nd of 2008. And so Google isn't exactly known for their great privacy. They literally took the "Don't be evil" slogan, although unofficial. That is so funny. That is so funny to me. And though Google takes security very seriously, and remember, security does not equal privacy or anonymity. I should make a video on that. Their browser is probably one of the most invasive. However, although Chrome is pretty bad for privacy, the thing that it's built on, Chromium, and its engine Blink, are all open source. And that's why it's possible to have other privacy-friendly browsers based on Chromium. Out of the major browsers you've probably heard, most of them run Chromium, except these two, Firefox and Safari. So in a way, if you decide that I'm switching from Google and then hop over to a more privacy-friendly browser, let's say Brave, then Google has technically still won. I mean, you're still trapped in the bubble of being dependent on Google. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't use Brave or any other Chromium-based browser, but that's still something to consider. Using a Chromium-based browser will indirectly keep you dependent on Google, just like these browsers are dependent on Chromium. It may look like you've escaped Google's bubble, but you have not, at least not fully. However, we do have some browsers that are independent. The greatest example, in my opinion, is Mozilla Firefox. Now, this is not sponsored by any browsers, although I love you, Firefox. As the successor to Netscape Navigator, oh my god, I wish I was alive in this era. Firefox is yet another free and open source browser. And it's also my browser of choice for a multitude of reasons. And I'm not the only one that uses it. You can find a lot of Firefox users, especially in the Linux space. I swear, we are not like this. We are not all weirdos. I swear we are not like this.
I swear.
And so Firefox runs on the Gecko engine, which is independent from Google's Blink, making it probably the only major alternative to Chrome, except Safari, but that's locked in Apple's walled garden. If you have not heard the name Firefox in a while, or don't even know a friend that uses it, I do not blame you. Most of my friends are on Opera. Sorry. Bro, that is like the shittiest browser you could use. Bro, like, unlike Google, the Mozilla Foundation is a nonprofit, and nonprofits tend to not have infinite money. For example, I've never seen an advertisement for Firefox, while there's plenty of Chromes. But I think Firefox kind of thrives in this point. It's kind of like the underdog, and it's recognized by many tech-savvy people as a great browser. And Linux users. For a developer, you may have stumbled upon it when stumbling upon the free software movement, or maybe you learned privacy was a thing and then tried to de-Google your life. Wait, one second. Way harder than it seems, by the way. Or maybe you're a web developer and you really like the developer flavor. Speaking of developers, let's talk about today's sponsor, Brilliant. I'm gonna be honest, sometimes I really don't feel like coding every day. And that's why I use Brilliant to stay sharp. Brilliant is a learning platform with thousands of lessons in math, data analysis, programming, and AI. It is the most effective way to learn, with each lesson filled with hands-on problem solving that lets you play with concepts. Brilliant allows me to develop a powerful daily learning habit, even if I want to stay embedded and watch TikToks.
What the shit?
And you can do lessons on the go right on your phone with their mobile app.
And for my developers out there, Brilliant's growing numbers of programming courses are a great way to build foundations and learn real-world application. You can get started with Python, which I've been wanting to learn for a really long time, learn essential coding elements like loops and variables, and develop your mind to actually start thinking like a programmer. If any of this sounds interesting to you, make sure to check out Brilliant at brilliant.org/geodev or scan the QR code right on the screen for a full 30-day free trial plus an additional 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thank you so much, Brilliant, for supporting the channel. Now back to the video.
Yes, flavor. And the problem repeats itself. Just like Chrome, Firefox has other forks or other Firefox based browsers. Probably the most common are Mozilla's own forks. So Firefox Nightly, Firefox Beta, Firefox Developer Edition, Firefox Focus, Asterisk on iOS. Unlike the Chromium browsers, which are copy and paste from themselves, that was a joke. Other Firefox forks include Waterfox, LaborWolf, really good for privacy out of the box, Mulvad browser, and guess what? The infamous dark web browser or deep web browser. The Tor browser is literally just modified Firefox with obviously the Tor protocol in it. There's also Florp. Yeah, Florp. However, even with all of these forks, Firefox is still not in the lead by a lot. It shares less than 3% of the total market share. And again, even its funding is mostly based on big tech companies, such as Google with the Google deal. Basically, Mozilla makes Google your default search engine when you install Firefox. What, does Firefox really love Google? No, Google made a deal with Mozilla and that's how they get a lot of their revenue from. Now let's talk Apple, which is thankfully second on the list with its browser Safari. So of course, Apple gotta be different and do its own thing. On one end, I'm pissed I have to worry about another compatibility issue when working on a website. Adding WebKit gets annoying. But on the other hand, I'm glad that Google is not the only dominant force in the market. Safari is built on Apple's engine WebKit, released by Apple on June 7th of 2005. And now you might think, oh, that's great, Apple's fighting back. But we have another problem now. iOS and iPadOS, I don't know about Vision OS, also Apple WatchOS. In those operating systems, Safari is your only choice. Even though you could go to the App Store and download Chrome or Brave or Firefox or Vivaldi or Opera. You might be thinking like you're switching browser, but Apple doesn't work that way. All of these browsers are still built on the WebKit engine, so they're all basically Safari skins. Yeah, maybe with some added privacy benefits on one end or some changed layout on the other, but you're still using Safari. And so this is the same problem as before with Google. In a lot of Apple products, Safari is literally the only choice. And even though I'm quite ignorant on WebKit's privacy, the problem with competition still emerges. How do we expect improvements if you're the only one in that space? If it works good enough, there is no incentive to spend money on improving something. Again, this only happens if you're the only player in the field. And at the end of the day, it's smart to spend little and gain everything. Because again, these are companies that value profit over anything. But there might be good news. With Apple allowing sideloading in the EU, I love my continent. Allowing different browser engines might have to be a requirement of Apple. And the fact that that's not already a law is insane to me. This would not only allow more fair practices, but also more liberty for the user to choose what browser they want to use. And again, we'll have better competition. If we see that Google is doing really good with their iOS browser, then Mozilla or Apple themselves will have to step up their game and eventually lead to a better browsing experience for all of us. But privacy and competition are only part of the reason why I really dislike Chromium. The third aspect is Manifest v3. Now, you may have heard of Manifest v3 and heard that it has something to do with YouTube, but what even is it? Manifest v3 is a major update in Chromium's extension framework. One of the biggest changes in Manifest v3 is a change on the API for handling network requests. Now, if you don't know what that means, I don't really either. But with Manifest v3, extensions are limited on how much data they can access directly. And this is a problem because they heavily stunt ad blockers like uBlock Origin. I'm a huge ad blocker advocate. I feel like the web is literally unusable without it. And so great extensions like uBlock Origin, which are great not only for ad blocking, but also for privacy in general, would be severely limited in what they can do. And this is obviously Google being Google, an advertising company. And even though Google will frame it as, oh, it's to better protect users' privacy, we all know what this is about. Google is an advertising company after all. An ad or two more would not hurt them whatsoever. But let's talk about something a little different now. Electron. You might have heard of it if you're in web developing, but it's basically a framework that allows developers to develop cross-platform desktop applications using web technologies. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript, frameworks like React, Angular, Vue, etc. It's really good, though some people think it's really slow. And some of your favorite applications are built on Electron. And so what does this have to do with browsers? Well, Electron uses web technologies. And to display a web page, you need an engine. Can you guess what engine Electron uses? So is hope lost? Will Google just win? Well, hopefully not. Maybe not entirely. New browsers are being developed that are not forks, but independent ones, such as the Ladybird project. And this seems all good and cool, except the release date is probably sometime next year. But don't listen to me. You should use a browser that works for you. Remember, these tools are made to aid us, not for us to stress over. Thank you so much for staying with me. If you like this video, then definitely let me know by leaving a like. If you're interested in this type of content, then consider subscribing. I mainly post videos on coding, web development, and the internet. This is a video I feel like you should check out because I thought it was cool and nice and good. And with that, I'll see you. Bye bye.